So I saw some breaking news on Twitter that OpenAI, their board is actually going to remove Microsoft and Apple, or rather, to put it in a little bit more, actual terms. Microsoft's observer role on OpenAI's board is being dissolved, and Apple's observer role is not going to move forward. So, what does all this mean? I saw all this on Twitter, and so the first thing that I did was I came over to Perplexity to fact check. And there's a reason that I wanted to do the video like this, and that's because I think the world would be better if more people use Perplexity to fact check. I often use Perplexity to fact check comments, and sometimes you people in the comments teach me things that I didn't know, and I can very quickly verify what was going on. By the way, this is not a paid sponsorship. I just really like Perplexity, and I like it when I see more people use Perplexity. So, anyways, what is going on with Microsoft and their board? Now, you might remember late last year, Sam Altman was ejected by the board, and Ilya Sutskever and a few other people of questionable background, at least according to some observers, were on the board, and they ejected Sam because he was, what did they say? They said that he was not regularly candid or something like that. Basically, he lost trust, and then what all came out is that Sam Altman is a smooth talker. I think that's putting it diplomatically. If a bunch of people at the highest rungs of this company learned that they don't really trust Sam Altman, and you people in the audience also, by and large, don't trust Sam Altman, based on the polls that I've run, and that was before a lot of the new scandals broke. So anyways, one of the things that happened after, that you may or may not recall, one of the things that happened after Sam Altman's ouster was Microsoft was really mad. Satya Nadella was pretty heated. He said that we are over and above them, and we have the IP, we have what we need. And then, of course, he kind of, and I'm not going to say he walked that back. He softened his tone and said that we want to keep working with Sam Altman wherever he is, which is a lot more diplomatic and PR friendly way of saying like we like Sam Altman. So Satya Nadella likes Sam Altman. And what they did say is that they were going to insist on some structural changes to the board. There's been lots and lots of commentary in the last I guess it was probably almost 9 months ago that all that happened. So there's been a lot of commentary about how OpenAI's board structure and company structure was pretty idiotic. And the way that I characterized it is that OpenAI kept saying, we're not like other girls. We're not like other girls of AI startups. And now over time, they are becoming more and more just like every other successful tech company. They have a board of directors that is in bed with the military industrial complex. They are in bed with all the other big tech. So really, they're just like the market forces have just forced them into compliance with the way that things are done. And this is a prime example of incentive structures. And this is why I say that incentive structures, and it's not just me, actually, my good friend Dylan over at Curious AI, he is a big believer in incentive structures too, and this is actually a big thing that we talk about. Incentive structures have the biggest bearing on the way that things play out whenever you're involved in a large system or a multi-system environment. And this is why I have shifted my view of AI safety away from individual models, because yes, you could create a perfect AI safety model that has mechanistic interpretability and is perfectly aligned, but it doesn't matter, because in a larger systemic environment, good intentions or good alignment within a single model has nothing that pales in comparison to the effect of perverse incentives or structural misalignments in the larger ecosystem, which is why a lot of my research has pivoted away from, for instance, agent frameworks and agent or model alignment to aligning humanity. And I actually got that idea from all of you in the audience. Over the past couple of years, whenever I've talked about alignment, you're like, okay, but aligning to what? And how do we align humanity? And that was actually the right question. How do we align humanity? Anyways, we'll talk about that in just a second. So taking a big step back, what does all this mean? Microsoft has said that they are going to step away from OpenAI's board of directors because they, quote unquote, trust OpenAI's new governance. It also happens that there's a lot of antitrust scrutiny happening in America. I don't know if it's in America yet, but certainly in the EU and the UK. And so what this means is that a lot of the regulators in these developed nations are a little bit suspicious of just how much overlap and cooperation there is between OpenAI and Microsoft. And of course, Microsoft has been embroiled in large antitrust lawsuits in the past. One of the largest was actually between Red Hat and Microsoft. This was back in the early 2000s, or was it the late 90s? It was a while ago. Anyways, it was huge news back then, and it was actually really big news for my area because I'm in North Carolina where Red Hat is headquartered. So we all remember when Microsoft was on the hook for antitrust stuff. And of course, they've been hit by antitrust lawsuits many, many times for Internet Explorer, for Bing, for all kinds of stuff. And, it's very much a deliberate part of their strategy, which is just to dominate and occupy as much of the market as possible. And again, that's also why I compare corporations to Shoggoth. Like, people want to compare AI to Shoggoth, but no, corporations are a much better representation where you have this cancerous, profit motive, grow or die mentality, do everything that you can within your power to grow and seize more control of the market, unless or until a regulator slaps your hand or until public sentiment turns against you. So anyways, that's actually probably what I'll use as the thumbnail for this video. Okay, so with all that being said, we are at a point where OpenAI is maturing. So I take this as a good thing. Now, like a lot of you, I'm not necessarily happy that Sam Altman and OpenAI are in bed with the military-industrial complex. But as I wrote on my blog about my unfiltered take on AI safety, I would much rather OpenAI be in bed with the U.S. military than the Chinese military or anything to do with China or Saudi Arabia or Russia. And there were rumors that Sam Altman was willing to sell out America to go to Saudi Arabia or China or Russia. I don't know if those have ever been substantiated, but if those rumors are true, that's really disgusting. But again, given the option, if you had to pick one, okay, to add some context, a lot of us that were in here in this space early, like back in GPT-2, GPT-3, there were people that were like back in 2021, 2022, that's like, oh yeah, Sam Altman's a sellout. He's going to sell out. And I even defend, I'm like, no, he seems like he's on the up and up. But the people who were saying that Sam Altman was going to sell out, turns out they were right. Now, so given the fact that like structural incentives matter, Sam Altman was always going to sell out, OpenAI was always going to sell out. If he had to pick one between Saudi Arabia, America, China, and Russia, I'd rather it be America. So that's where I'm at. Again, they were the not like other girls of AI companies, of startups, and the jig is up. And I think that this is also why Sam Altman has been in the news a lot less lately. Like, basically what I guess is his lawyers and his PR team said, hey, all these scandals are making you look bad, so why don't you just quiet down for a while until it all blows over? That's actually a pretty common strategy that is recommended for, particularly for corporate PR, which is, again, the Shoggoth PR meme that I created and sent out on Twitter. Is just, you just let it blow over because the mob is fickle. Once the news cycle churns a little bit, people will forgive and forget, because if no more evidence comes out, and it's like, it takes time for the public consciousness to realize, like, okay, whatever harm was done was forgivable or not that bad or whatever. Because the news cycle basically goes like, there's something is emotional, right? But then once you scrutinize it with not your emotional monkey brain, but you scrutinize it with your rational logic brain, you're like, okay, was it really that bad? Okay, whatever, I don't really care, let's move on. So that's kind of where I think that OpenAI is where they're maturing, they're kind of getting entrenched. Is it ideal? No. I mean, if they could have maintained their nonprofit status indefinitely, I think that could have been better. But as the emails that they released due to Elon Musk's lawsuit, that was never the plan. I think it was back in 2015 was when they made the decision that they needed private money. So it's been 8 or 9 years in the making. And there's also rumors, again, unsubstantiated rumors so far, that Sam Altman is wanting to just go full for-profit corporation and just ditch the nonprofit tag altogether. So the OpenAI governance structure, that was doomed from the outset. And as I've talked about in the past, I'm not necessarily a fan of Sam Altman and what he's done. I know a lot of you out there in the audience are. But what I will say is the brain drain from OpenAI is pretty significant. OpenAI and Sam Altman in particular created their biggest competitor, Anthropic, because Sam Altman alienated the founders of Anthropic a couple of years ago because of his take on safety. He's also now alienated Ilya Sutskever because of his take on safety. So when the people who are actual scientists, when the people who are actually trained in ethics and philosophy say, you know what, we're going to go do this somewhere else, and then Anthropic is beating OpenAI at their own game, I think safety wins. And this goes back to those structural incentives where it's not just what you can achieve in one company, where Sam Altman is approaching this from a Web 2.0 perspective, where he's like, I'm just going to A/B test my way to AGI. I really don't think that's going to work. Anthropic, as I and others have pointed out, has just a fundamentally different take on AI safety and AI progress. Now, in another way of looking at this, though, is competition is not necessarily good, because a lot of people out there on Twitter, so take it with a grain of salt, but people on Twitter have criticized Anthropic for increasing their cadence of release cycle because they have explicitly stated that they are not trying to accelerate the AI race, but at the same time, they're incentivized to do so because of what I call terminal race condition, which is basically, especially when you can just swap between chatbots on a whim. It's like, hey, ChatGPT is kind of useless right now, so I'm just going to go use Claude. Your fortunes can rise and fall in the space of a week in the AI space today. And for those of you that are old enough to remember, do you remember like Ask Jeeves and Dogpile, like all the competition between web browsers until we all settled on Google? That's really what it feels like right now. It feels like 1998/1999 when we're all just like, hey, are we going to use Netscape Navigator or AOL or whatever? And then Google pops up and it's like, oh, this is actually the best web browser. I remember the day that I set Google as my homepage way back in the day, because I'm like, yeah, this is the best place to start. That was probably in the late 90s or early 2000s when I had my first personal computer. And we're at that same phase right now where the market is trying to figure out who's got the best chatbot. And right now, it really looks like, to me, Anthropic has caught up to and surpassed OpenAI in terms of the core model, the core LLM. Now, OpenAI is doing really good with dressing it up with other stuff, all the little features and stuff that they're bolting onto it. But the core model of Anthropic is far and away much more intelligent and much more user-friendly than ChatGPT. I basically don't use ChatGPT anymore. It's too stupid and sanctimonious. Anyways, I'm rambling now. This is a bit of a rant. So getting back on topic, a lot of people have, so when I've talked about OpenAI is in bed with the military industrial complex, what I'm referring to is Paul M. Nakasone, if I'm saying his name right. So head of the NSA, former U.S. Army general, again, intelligence spooks. I'd rather them be American overseeing OpenAI than someone else. So we'll see where it goes. I'm not going to say that this is good news or bad news. This is basically, at this point, to be expected. A result like this, honestly, should have been kind of like a foregone conclusion once Sam Altman was ousted and then came back. With the help of Satya Nadella and Microsoft, amongst others. So, I mean, no news is good news, I guess, is one way to leave it. So I have another announcement, and that is that I am going to be slowly transitioning or building up a new community on School. So my new community is going to be called the New Era Pathfinders. And this is based on all of the work that I've done personally, my personal transformation journey, adapting to the new world of AI. And so this is going to be a new dynamic online community that is based on a 5-point framework of the same transformational journey that I have gone on. So becoming a power user, understanding the economic changes that are coming, such as post-labor economics, back to basics lifestyles, therapeutic lifestyle changes. All the videos that I do in the woods, that's that. And then people skills, so negotiation, relationships, consensus building, that sort of thing. And then finally, radical alignment. So radical alignment is something that I've been talking about as the antidote to Moloch, the antidote to the nihilistic crisis that we're in. And I will be teaching All of that in this new community. Now, this new community is not yet up and running. I just want to let you know that it is coming. I have a fantastic mentor who I will introduce at a later date, who is helping me build out all of this. And yeah, so this is coming down the pipeline. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Have a good one.